Jungkook was introduced as the Golden Maknae. His reputation was built on versatility, singing, dancing, visuals, and stage presence. But at that time, his role was still defined as the youngest, the main vocalist, the one who could adapt wherever needed. He was central, but he was not yet the central figure. Over time, however, that foundation began to shift. What was once simply a position as main vocalist began to expand into something larger. His voice became not just the strongest technical anchor in live performances, but also the emotional core that fans leaned on. His stage presence began to carry a different weight, one that even the group's producers and choreographers seemed to recognize. Slowly, Jungkook became the member who dictated the rhythm of BTS performances. If he poured extra energy into a show, the others fed off of it. If he was exhausted, the audience could feel that shift too. That was the beginning of his transformation, and the first clue that his role was destined to turn into something much more. When BTS reached the peak of global recognition, during the years of massive international tours, Grammy appearances, and Billboard dominance, Jungkook's voice became the one sound that non-Korean audiences immediately attached to. Songs like Euphoria, My Time, and even his standout bridges in group tracks turned him from main vocalist into global face of BTS's sound. His parts became the climaxes, his voice the transition from rap-heavy sections into emotional resolutions. Suddenly, what fans and industry insiders began to notice was that Jungkook was not just a singer within BTS, he was the anchor that carried the essence of BTS's emotional storytelling. But the real wild turn began when the group entered their chapter of solo projects. Each member pursued music, acting, or personal artistry. For Jungkook, this wasn't just a side project. It was a breakout that rewrote his role entirely. His solo tracks didn't just succeed, they dominated charts worldwide, competing with American pop stars on their own turf. The fact that Jungkook was not only holding his own but leading meant that his role inside BTS was no longer limited to main vocalist. He had evolved into the global gateway of BTS, the one member whose artistry was capable of crossing boundaries without the need for translation, explanation, or cultural framing. What made this turn wild is that it wasn't simply a promotion of status, it was a complete redefinition of what BTS's internal structure means. BTS was always described as a collective, where no one member outshined the others. Yet, Jungkook's trajectory proved that one member could become the gravitational center while still holding the group together. His rise doesn't undermine the other members. Instead, it reframes the group around him in ways no one predicted. The once golden maknae has become something far more complex. A leader without being the leader, a frontman without officially holding the title, the emotional spokesperson of BTS's music without ever being announced as such. This is why fans and analysts alike are calling it a wild turn. It is not simply about Jungkook thriving individually, it is about how his rise forces the narrative of BTS itself to change. He has gone from one of seven to the compass that redefines how the seven are viewed. The question is simple. Why does Jungkook's transformation feel so dramatic? The answer lies in how his artistry breaks expectations. Traditionally, K-pop operates on fixed roles. Leaders lead, rappers rap, vocalists sing, dancers dominate choreography, and visuals maintain the group's aesthetic appeal. These roles keep balance within the group dynamic, preventing one member from absorbing too much attention. But Jungkook has systematically blurred every line. He sings with the precision of a trained vocalist, dances with the sharpness of a main dancer, raps when necessary, composes, produces, and even directs. He embodies the roles of multiple members at once, yet manages to do it without overshadowing the group dynamic. This multi-dimensional growth made it impossible to keep him contained under a single label. When Jungkook began releasing solo material, the industry witnessed something rare: a K-pop idol stepping fully into the Western pop ecosystem without losing identity. His songs charted alongside global heavyweights, his voice carried on radios across continents, and his stage presence became a universal talking point. For BTS, this was seismic. It meant that while the group's collective success had already broken barriers, Jungkook individually was now carrying the weight of representing BTS in spaces where not all members could stand simultaneously. In that sense, his role turned into something more symbolic: the bridge between BTS and the world. This wild turn also reflects in how BTS stages are now remembered. In past performances, fans often point to the Jungkook moment. Whether it's a soaring high note, a shirt lift, or a solo dance break, he has become the member whose moments are archived as the peak of each show. What this does to his role is simple yet powerful. It makes him the defining memory of BTS performances. No longer just part of the ensemble, he is the heartbeat of the live experience. This evolution is not just about individual charisma, but about how audiences now view BTS through the lens of Jungkook's impact. Another crucial aspect of this transformation is emotional. Jungkook's artistry resonates because he doesn't simply perform, he translates emotion. His ability to turn vulnerability into sound, to make lyrics breathe with life, and to inject sincerity into performances has made him not just a performer, but an emotional narrator. BTS's messages of resilience, self-love, and connection are powerful. But when delivered through Jungkook's voice, they land differently, more personal, more intimate, and more enduring. This is why fans describe him as the soul of BTS's sound. Without him, the songs might still exist, but they would not hit with the same intensity. This role redefinition does not mean Jungkook has replaced other members. Rather, his expansion forces the narrative of BTS to evolve. The group is no longer seen as 7 equal roles in fixed positions. It is seen as a dynamic system where Jungkook is increasingly the axis. For a group built on equality, this was never the intended plan, but the organic rise of Jungkook's artistry has made it inevitable. That is why his role within BTS is described as taking a wild turn. It is not just unexpected, but almost revolutionary in how it reshapes the way K-pop groups can function moving forward. At its core, BTS has always been about connection. Their music, their story, their rise, it has been framed as the story of 7 young men holding each other up against all odds. Yet now, with Jungkook stepping into this new role, the emotional reading of BTS changes. He is no longer just one of the 7. He is the voice that embodies the group's bond with ARMY. This isn't only about his technical skill or popularity. It's about how Jungkook carries vulnerability in public spaces. He shows imperfection, admits fear, expresses gratitude in ways that feel unfiltered. Fans connect to this rawness because it makes the global superstar human. And when BTS, a group often placed on impossible pedestals, needs grounding, it is Jungkook who pulls that humanity back into focus. This emotional leadership is invisible on paper, but undeniable in reality. What this means for BTS's future is profound. As the group navigates solo activities, military service, and eventual reunification, Jungkook's role will not revert back to just main vocalist. Instead, he is poised to be the anchor of BTS's next era. His solo dominance has ensured that when BTS returns as a full unit, audiences will see them through the lens of his growth. The expectations will be higher, but so will the possibilities. BTS can now be framed as a group with a central emotional core Jungkook, while still celebrating the diverse artistry of each member. The wild turn is that Jungkook's rise has rewritten the map. Where once BTS's roles were evenly distributed, now the gravitational pull bends around him. It does not destroy the balance, it reshapes it. This transformation speaks not only to his talent, but to his ability to embody what BTS stands for at its most essential level: passion, vulnerability, and connection that transcends borders. In truth, Jungkook's role taking this turn is not surprising when you consider his history. From trainee to youngest member to golden maknae, every chapter has been a step toward this point. The wild part is how massive and undeniable the shift has become. So much so that the world now views BTS's narrative through his lens. And that is the essence. Jungkook's BTS role just took a wild turn because he is no longer simply in BTS, he is BTS's living heartbeat. His voice, his growth, his presence are not side notes to the group's story. They are the central thread that weaves the story together now and in the future. The story of BTS has never been static. From debut struggles to global dominance, the group has constantly reinvented itself. But with Jungkook's role taking the wild turn it has, the future of BTS is no longer just about 7 members together. It is about how Jungkook's evolution reframes the group's identity moving forward. This shift is not temporary, it is structural, and that makes the question of what comes next even more intriguing. Historically, BTS performances were celebrated for their synchronization, power, and collective presence. Every member carried weight, and the synergy was the group's trademark. But as Jungkook has become the undisputed performance centerpiece, it changes the lens. Future BTS stages will not only be about group unity, they will be about how the group flows around Jungkook's energy. His solo stages have proven he can hold arenas on his own. But within BTS, this strength magnifies the group's reach. Fans no longer just watch BTS as a whole, they wait for the Jungkook highlight, the pivot moment where the show tilts in intensity. This doesn't erase the contributions of others. Instead, it sets a new structure where Jungkook is both the climax and the anchor. Jungkook has shown a growing interest in not only singing but also shaping his own music. His solo releases reflect choices in genre, production, and vocal styling that reveal his identity beyond the BTS framework. This creative expansion signals that future BTS projects may lean more heavily on Jungkook's artistic instincts. While BTS has always prided itself on being a collaborative machine, the wild turn in Jungkook's growth positions him as the creative trendsetter. His sense of global sound, his ability to balance Korean roots with Western appeal, and his instinct for emotional resonance make him an unavoidable influence in BTS's next musical direction. And perhaps the most crucial is emotional. BTS's brand has always been about sincerity and connection. Over the years, members have carried this in different ways. RM through thoughtful leadership, Suga through lyrical honesty, J, hope through positivity, V through artistic flair, Jin through warmth, and Jimin through intensity. Jungkook, however, has grown into a unique kind of emotional representative. His vulnerability, the willingness to show flaws, the openness to admit doubts, the rawness in how he speaks and sings has made him the mirror of ARMY's feelings. This is the heart of his wild turn. He is no longer simply performing music, he is embodying the collective emotions of millions. In the future, this role will only deepen, making him the emotional channel through which BTS continues to connect with fans worldwide. Another undeniable factor is legacy. BTS has already cemented itself as a generational group. But legacy is not static, it is shaped by how the story continues. Jungkook's wild turn positions him as the member who will carry BTS into the next era of legacy. When future audiences look back, they will not just remember BTS as 7, they will remember the chapter where Jungkook stepped into a central, transformative role. This doesn't diminish the others. Rather, it ensures that BTS's story continues to feel alive and dynamic rather than frozen in the past. This wild turn also complicates BTS's image in a fascinating way. The group's strength has always been its collective identity. But Jungkook's rise blurs the line between BTS the group and Jungkook the global figure. In some ways, he is now larger than the structure, yet he still chooses to remain inside it. This paradox creates tension, but it also creates intrigue. The fact that someone with Jungkook's power continues to anchor himself to BTS is what will make the group's next chapter so powerful. His choice to remain central within the group when he could easily dominate as a solo act indefinitely reaffirms the bond and ensures that BTS's story is not fractured but expanded. Looking at the long-term future, Jungkook's role may even redefine what it means to be in a K-pop group. Traditionally, once idols gain global fame, they either disband or focus solely on solo careers. Jungkook, however, represents a new model. The global superstar who strengthens the group instead of leaving it. If this pattern continues, BTS will not only remain relevant, but also reshape the structure of how idol groups operate for the next generation. This is the ultimate consequence of his wild turn. He is not just evolving BTS's internal roles, he is evolving the blueprint for the entire industry. And perhaps the most emotional element of all is the idea of responsibility. Jungkook's rise is not without weight. Every turn he takes now represents not just himself, but the identity of BTS as a whole. He carries expectations from fans, from the group, from the industry. Yet what makes his wild turn so compelling is that he does not shy away from it. He embraces it with both humility and confidence. He acknowledges his flaws, yet continues to push forward. This balance of vulnerability and strength makes him not just BTS's emotional core, but its living proof that growth can be both personal and collective. In the end, Jungkook's BTS role has taken a wild turn not because of one moment, but because of the entire arc of his journey. From the youngest trainee to the golden maknae, from the main vocalist to the global centerpiece, from the dependable performer to the emotional narrator, every stage has led here. The future shape of BTS will be defined by this reality, that Jungkook is no longer just a part of BTS's story. He is the axis on which the story spins. This does not erase the others, nor does it divide the group. Instead, it creates a new, layered narrative, BTS as a collective, with Jungkook as its heartbeat. The wild turn is not the end of balance, but the beginning of a new balance, one that acknowledges his rise while still celebrating the unity that made BTS what it is. And that is why Jungkook's wild turn is not only shocking, but inevitable. It is not a deviation from the BTS story, it is the next chapter.